All right. Good evening, everybody, and a warm welcome to you. Welcome back to class. Good evening to you all. Great to see you back. Great to see you learning so hard and preparing for the examination. Great to see you consistent. Great to see you still pushing each and every day. Great to see you all. Good evening, Wildom. Good evening, Israel. Good evening, Marvelous. Good evening, Valentine. And good evening to all of you connected from more than 7 countries in Africa. Good evening to you all. Welcome to class. Welcome to another episode, another lesson. And tonight we upgrade our skills. We move our understanding to a whole new level. We keep moving forward. We keep upgrading ourselves. We keep learning and we keep preparing for the AWS CCP certification examination. So I welcome you to day 5 of our course in AWS cloud computing. Today is day 5, and today we will cover another important concept in cloud computing. We will cover what is called platform as a service today. In day 4, yesterday, we covered serverless computing, and it was so wonderful to learn about serverless computing. And in day 5, we move on to what is called platform as a service. And we will talk about a very special AWS service today. If you can hear me, please type platform as a service in the chat for me. Platform as a service in the chat for me. So let me see who will be the first to give me platform as a service. Well done, always so fast. Solomon, platform as a service. Lois, platform as a service. Valentine, platform as a service. Norbert says, simply pass. Yes, it is just pass. PAAS. And in this particular training, you are being trained to become a certified cloud practitioner. After this training, you'll have the skills it takes to explore the cloud, explore the leading cloud in the world, which is AWS. AWS is the #1 cloud platform on the planet called Earth, in the whole wide world, AWS. And so learning about AWS will really make you tech ready, will prepare your mind to work in the industry, to use modern technology, modern tools, understand technology at the cutting edge, so that on the field, you will not be using outdated tools, but on the field, you'll be using modern technology. Your knowledge in cloud can be extended to your field in data analytics, data science, in software development, in cybersecurity, in DevOps, of course, and in any field in tech that you want to pursue. When we were learning Python, we understood that Python will be used across. And yesterday, someone said it in class that in our AWS training, we are encountering Python. So yesterday in the video, you saw a Python function created with a def keyword, and it was easier to understand or to see a Python code that you already know. And it will be very easy as you move forward because of the foundation you have. As you keep on learning and upgrading yourself, you become much better. Today is going to be a whole new level, so prepare your mind, get ready to learn more, get ready to hear new terminologies, get ready to learn new skills, get ready to move yourself to another level. I'm going to start this class with some two short clips. So let's just watch these clips. After that, I'm going to give you a general overview of the core AWS services. And then we will zoom in to platform as a service and the particular service that we will be focusing on. It is important to be hearing the names of the core AWS services because for some of them, hearing them for the first time may be quite tricky and difficult to absorb. But if you've been hearing it, like Redshift, like S3, when you get to it, it becomes easier to understand. And tonight, we are going to learn about what is called Elastic Beanstalk, which is a platform as a service. So let's watch these videos and we will get right into it.
Cloud computing is the on-demand delivery of IT resources via the internet, with pay-as-you-go pricing. Instead of buying, owning, and maintaining physical data centers and servers, you can access technology services such as computing power, storage, and databases on an as-needed basis from a cloud provider like Amazon Web Services. Organizations of every type, size, and industry are using the cloud for a wide variety of use cases, such as data backup, disaster recovery, email, virtual desktops, software development and testing, big data analytics, and customer-facing web applications. For example, healthcare companies are using the cloud to develop more personalized treatments for patients. Financial services companies are using the cloud to power real-time fraud detection and prevention. And video game makers are using the cloud to deliver online games to millions of players around the world. With cloud computing, your business can become more agile, reduce costs, instantly scale, and deploy globally in minutes. Cloud computing gives you instant access to a broad range of technologies so you can innovate faster and build nearly anything you can imagine. From infrastructure services such as compute, storage, and databases, to Internet of Things, machine learning, data analytics, and much more. You can deploy technology services in a matter of minutes and get from idea to implementation several orders of magnitude faster than before. This gives you the freedom to experiment and test new ideas to differentiate customer experiences and transform your business, such as adding machine learning and intelligence to your applications in order to personalize experiences for your customers and improve their engagement. You don't need to make large upfront investments in hardware and overpay for capacity you don't use. Instead, you can trade capital expense for variable expense and only pay for IT as you consume it. With cloud computing, you access resources from the cloud in real time, as they're needed. You can scale these resources up and down to grow or shrink capacity instantly as your business needs change. Cloud computing also makes it easy to expand to new regions and deploy globally in minutes. For example, Amazon Web Services has infrastructure all over the world, so you're able to deploy your application in multiple physical locations in just a few clicks. Putting applications in closer proximity to end users reduces latency and improves their experience. No matter your location, size, or industry, the cloud frees you from managing infrastructure and data centers so you can focus on what matters most to your business.
All right. I decided to make the video short and simple. So let's get into the lesson. I've already told you about this wonderful lady and how she started a business on a tabletop selling only 3 products: bread, eggs, and milk. This was all she started with. She kept on working so hard, month after month, for several months, until she was able to put a roof on top of the table. As she kept doing business, she saved the profits and she was able to add new products. She started selling products that women needed and people needed every time, every day. She kept working so hard, focused, and dedicated to her work. After a while, she upgraded into a wooden store and started selling more and more products. At this time, almost every time, she would add something new. This woman was so inspiring to me that anytime I pass by and see her working and working and working, I felt so inspired to also get to my work and work so hard. This is a story of everyone who is dedicated to what they are doing today, no matter how small it is. Your project may be small today, your work may be small today, your business may be small today, but with focus and determination, you can move it to the next level. After a while, this small business became a full-fledged supermarket or even a mall, having countless products to meet the needs of everyone in the city, from low-income families to luxury families in the city. Everyone bought from this supermarket. This, just like the story of every dedicated person, is the story of AWS. Amazon Web Services launched in 2006, and it offered just three core services. It offered EC2 for compute. It offered S3 for storage, and offered SQS, simple queue service, for messaging. These were the essentials for developers and businesses just beginning to explore the possibilities of cloud computing. But as demand grew, and with the dedication of AWS, AWS expanded, adding more services year after year. From 2006 to 2024, it has been an exciting 18 somewhat years of exploring cloud computing. Today, AWS has grown like that woman's shop, transformed into a giant cloud provider with over 200 cloud services to meet the needs of all businesses, from startups to industry giants. When you get into the AWS Management Console, you may be overwhelmed. Just like the supermarket has countless products. However, these products have been categorized to make it easier to understand and to use them. We have compute services. These compute services offer EC2, Elastic Compute Cloud, to help you set up virtual servers to run applications. And so all the services in the compute provide computers to run your applications. We need to understand that for the cloud, for the internet to work, the internet is powered by computers. In our webmaster class, we took some time to explore how the internet was set up. And we understood that the internet was actually set up with physical devices. There are physical devices that make up the internet. The internet, as you know it, is very, very physical. Every component of the internet is physical. This means that you can actually touch the components that make up the internet. You can disconnect if you want. We learned that the internet is more wired than wireless. What we know as wireless technology is actually a wired technology using short distance wireless communications like Wi-Fi and cellular communications, which is a little longer in terms of range and distance. But the internet we know is actually physical and wired. From country to country, from continent to continent, the internet is made up of cables and buildings and computers and a lot of networking devices. These computers make the internet work. And so if you want to host something on the internet, if you want to add something, an application to the internet, you need computers. These compute services give you the computers you need to run your business on the internet. Apart from EC2, we have serverless computing services designed intelligently by AWS, like Lambda. We also have Elastic Beanstalk. We have ECS and EKS. These two use what we call containers and the technology we call containerization to power applications. AWS is so intelligent in how they have designed their compute services to make it very, very easy and cost effective for everyone looking to put something online. We have Lightsail, which provides a user-friendly service for launching simple applications and simple servers, ideal for small businesses and for beginners. Apart from the compute services, they also provide infrastructure for storage. So we have storage services. The storage services includes Amazon S3, which allows you to store, just like you store on your hard drive. You can store any file, any object, anything you want to store in the cloud. So if you are looking for cloud storage, S3 is the first thing to come to mind. We have EBS, which is called Elastic Block Store, and it provides block storage, which we'll look into for EC2 instances. So as we've studied about EC2 instance, very soon we are going to connect the EC2 to EBS, and we'll realize how EBS supports storage on EC2. We also have the popular Amazon Glacier, which allows you to archive files. If there are files that you will not be accessing frequently, AWS has designed Glacier, which allows you to pay very, very less for storage that you will not need every day. For storage that you will need every day, you have to use S3 buckets. But to store something and archive, Glacier is an incredible service to use. We also have FSX, which is a managed file system that provides solutions with options for Windows and other operating systems. So amazing. So AWS even has their own file system. When it comes to storage in computers, there are a lot of things that we need to study to upgrade ourselves. You need to take some time and learn about file systems, learn about FAT32, file allocation table, learn about XFAT, learn about NTFS. These are incredible lessons that when you take, it helps you understand how computers store data. So AWS allow us to get FSX, which is their file system that they have built. We also have storage gateway. This storage gateway connects on-premises storage with AWS. And so if your company has a data center and wants to hybrid or connect with AWS, you can use storage gateway to connect your on-premise storage with AWS. We also have database services, and the popular one is RDS. RDS stands for Relational Database Service. And if you have been working with MySQL or PostgreSQL and any relational database management system, and you want to move to the cloud, you need RDS. For For example, you can deploy your WordPress application online. We know that WordPress works with MySQL. So just like we configured our databases manually, this time you have to connect your databases onto RDS to use MySQL to power your WordPress. We have Postgres. That is also another database management system that works on RDS. Then when we move to NoSQL databases, and when you study into the world of databases in IT, you realize that we have SQL databases, which works with the structured query language SQL. And so MySQL and all the relational database management systems, they all use SQL. But NoSQL databases, in AWS, we have DynamoDB. DynamoDB is a highly scalable NoSQL database for fast data access. AWS also provides Amazon Aurora, which is a high-performance relational database, also compatible with MySQL and PostgreSQL. And so anytime you hear about relational database management systems, MySQL should come to mind, Postgres should come to mind, SQLite should come to mind, Oracle database should come to mind. Even Microsoft Access database all use the relational database system. We also have a database service on AWS called Amazon Redshift. Redshift is a data warehouse for analyzing large data sets, ideal for data analytics, data science, business intelligence. Redshift is the database platform. We also have DocumentsDB, which is a managed database compatible with MongoDB. We know MongoDB to be a NoSQL database platform. So once we say NoSQL, on AWS, we have DynamoDB and we also have DocumentDB. They all provide NoSQL databases. Then moving on, we have networking and content delivery services. The popular virtual private cloud or VPC provides secure, isolated networks for launching AWS resources. And so very soon you will create your own virtual private cloud to launch your AWS services. We also have the popular Route 53, which is a domain registration service and a DNS management system for routing internet traffic through AWS. We have the most popular CloudFront, which works with the AWS edge locations to provide what we call content delivery networks that deliver applications very, very fast and ensures low latency and fast content delivery. We also have what we call AWS Direct Connect, which is a dedicated network that allows you to connect your on-premise data centers to AWS for fast and secure transfer. Yesterday, we talked about Amazon API Gateway, which allows you to run RESTful APIs and APIs through AWS. In our Python class, we moved on to intermediate and we learned about RESTful APIs. So if you want to build an API, if you want to work with APIs, API Gateway is the best option for you. When we move to management services, we have the most popular CloudWatch. Almost in every AWS class, you are going to be hearing about CloudWatch. This CloudWatch is a very popular service on AWS that monitors and logs your resources to help you keep an eye on your services. We have CloudTrail. This records activities. CloudTrail records user activities and ensures transparency and security. So CloudTrail creates logs and records activities. We have AWS Config, which tracks and assesses AWS resource configurations and ensures compliance. We have Systems Manager, which manages AWS resources across environments from a central location. And last but not the least, we have AWS organizations, which manages multiple accounts with consolidated billings and access control. It is important to keep hearing these names because as you hear them, they become easier to absorb them and understand them. There are over 200 services on AWS, but the CCP certification examination requires that you focus on the core services like we have mentioned. These core services work together, and by the time we are done with this course, you will make sense of most of them and how they work together, making you a certified cloud practitioner. There are 65 questions in the main examination. Before you sit for the main examination, you'll sit for a mock exam, which is a practice test, and with a shorter time for you to test yourself and pass the examination. Get yourself ready for the examination. You need to understand very, very well that this particular examination, you are not allowed to cheat. So when it comes to AWS, don't try to learn how to cheat. When it comes to AWS, don't try to get help because this exam has been designed intelligently with a lot of psychological expertise to ensure that by the time you score 70%, it demonstrates that you understand the cloud. And the badge that is given to you will maintain its credibility to prove to the industry that you are a certified cloud practitioner. So as we keep learning, let us learn for understanding. Let us focus and learn for understanding because this examination, this certification is going to be a stepping stone in your career, stepping stone in your learning journey, and it's going to help you move to the next level of your dreams. So let's keep learning. Let's learn hard. In the main examination, you'll be asked to answer 65 questions, like I mentioned. Your environment is going to be checked. You are going to be monitored live. Your surrounding will be monitored. You have to stick to your screen and your tab. You're not allowed to go anywhere, change your tab. You're not allowed to be looking around. Your camera will be on. You'll be watched. Whether you are taking it at home or you are taking it in a test center, you are going to be monitored. So let's train ourselves. This is the time for the training. Let's prepare ourselves. With all that we've learned so far, let's make sure that we remember them, we are learning, we understand them. If anything is tricky, go back to the videos. The videos are available. Go back, learn them, refresh your memories, and make sure you have understanding. Right from introduction to cloud computing, right from cloud computing service models like IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, and right into AWS, the history of AWS, the global infrastructure, the data centers, the edge locations, CloudFront, Compute, EC2, Lambda, and today Platform as a Service. Make sure you understand everything. All right. And as you have the main understanding, when you take examination, you are going to pass, proving to the world that you have a future in tech. You have a future in tech. I believe strongly that you have a future in tech and you'll be able to do this. All right. So still focusing on compute, we are going to cover another aspect of compute. And we have already mentioned that these compute services, they provide computers or processing power. All of them are there to provide computers, but AWS has designed the services in a way that makes it easy for you to access compute in different forms. Like what we learned yesterday with serverless computing, you still access compute without dealing with compute at all. Today, we'll be moving on to Elastic Beanstalk, and it is also similar to Lambda, quite similar to Lambda. Although not serverless compute, they have a lot of similarities. And so if you understand the abstraction we studied about Lambda, where you only focus on code and AWS takes care of the rest, what we are going to learn today is pretty similar. AWS abstract the complexities and you focus on code. And all these compute services, we understand that they provide processing power or compute in the cloud to let you run your applications or tasks, some automated, some manual, and any workload you have in the cloud. There are several compute services like we've seen, all designed for different needs. So based on your need, AWS has designed the service for you. So as you study about them, you get to understand which one works best for you. Today, we want to move on to platform as a service. Platform as a service. Platform as a service. Now, when we talk about cloud computing, three service models come to mind. We have infrastructure as a service, we have platform as a service, and we have software as a service. Which one is platform as a service? Before you understand this clearly, you need to understand that when it comes to cloud services are in stacks or layers, right from the bottom where the data centers are to all the technologies that build upon it. With platform as a service, you only focus on the platform. You only focus on the platform. And so, for us to understand this very well, let's look at this particular diagram and get a better understanding. Let me share my screen again so we can follow and understand well. Now, if you have studied about the internet and how the internet works, you realize that there are a lot of technologies and layers of infrastructure that come together. Earlier in this lesson, I mentioned that there are actual buildings involved. And so any company that wants to provide internet service, like all ISPs, all internet service providers, all service providers like web hosting companies, all of them need the bottom layer, which is what we call data centers. So you can see that they all invest in buildings, very large buildings where they store the machines. These machines, these are the servers that allow us to run the internet. So when you study about web hosting, you realize that there are servers, there are web servers hosted in data centers that allow you to put your applications online. These servers are networked, and the internet is all about networking. And so when it comes to the cloud or the internet, we have data centers involved, we have networking involved, we have storage and servers. Of course, the servers have storage. There are gigabytes and petabytes of storage in the servers. The servers are computers. And when it comes to the internet, Mostly, the internet, and more specifically, cloud computing, uses the virtualization technology. So you can see that all of these service models, they all implement virtualization. Other hosting companies may not use virtualization directly unless you are going in for a VPN hosting or VPS hosting. But when it comes to cloud computing, specifically like the cloud that AWS provides, all the servers have virtualization on them. So it is in virtual machines that your applications live. Sometimes you go in for infrastructure as a service. And so right after the virtualization is created, you have the infrastructure you need to be able to configure and use based on your need. And so you, the customer, you have to manage the operating system you run on your virtual machines. You need to manage your databases, your firewalls, and your security policies and everything. Plus, the main thing that you want to do with it. Why do we go for all of these infrastructures? We go for all of these infrastructures because of the applications we want to host. So all of them at the top or at the end of the layers. And when it comes to internet layers, we usually count from the bottom or we read from the bottom. So if you study computer networking, you learn about the OSI model or the TCP/IP model. You learn that they provide layers. And at the end of the layer, the very last one, which is at the top, in terms of abstraction, the one at the top is the last one. It's always the application. That is why we call users as end users, because the application is what is at the end of the layer. So the user of an application is an end user. And all these applications you can see here, they are all designed for users. What do we do online? We use things, we use applications. And so on top of all of the infrastructure, we have applications. With infrastructure as a service, you handle most of the middleware, or you handle other part of the infrastructures plus your application because of special configurations. With platform as a service, you only focus on your application. So looking at this diagram, you focus on your application. And of course, if your application has a database, it's all together as your application. So sometimes in other diagrams, you see application and data. That data talks about not just a database management system that powers your infrastructure, but the data that works with your project. So, of course, application here refers to that application. With software as a service, the software is created by the cloud provider. So you don't have to create a software, you just use it. You are still an end user and you use a software that is giving you. And so the cloud provider handles everything in the stack. With platform as a service, what it means is that you are a developer and you are creating your platform or your application. With a software as a service, you may not be a developer, you just want an application to use. Or you may be a developer and you want an existing application to use. With platform as a service, you are a developer and the platform has been given to you. All you do is to focus on your app. Write your code and put it on the platform. You don't have to do any security, no firewall settings, no policies. You don't manage your database management system, no operating system installation, and all that. This is the idea of platform as a service, and I'm pretty sure you all understand this. Now, platform as a service is a cloud computing service model, like we have seen, which is also called PaaS, and it provides a platform for developers to build, to deploy, and to manage their applications without worrying about the underlying infrastructure. This is very clear. This picture tells you that as a platform developer, you build your application and you don't worry about the underlying infrastructure. This picture tells you the underlying infrastructure or the work that is done underneath. You are not supposed to control that. With infrastructure as a service, you don't just build an app, you configure the platform or the infrastructure as well. And so if you're an app developer and you are still doing the work of the infrastructure, it is going to be a whole lot of work because you build your app and you also manage the operating system, manage the provisioning of the servers, and a whole lot of work, the security policies, a whole lot of updates, and a whole lot. You manage all of that. With platform, you only do one job, and another team works for you. When it comes to cloud computing, there are still teams doing everything, just that someone is doing it for you. You are not doing it yourself. With platform as a service, it abstracts away the complexities of the hardware, the operating system, the middleware, allowing developers to focus solely on application development. This is what we've made clear so far. And this will lead us to the service in AWS that operates as a platform as a service or operates as platform as a service. This service on AWS is called Elastic Beanstalk. Please put that in the chat for me if I'm audible. Elastic Beanstalk. So we begin today's lesson over here. Everything we've said before was just to prepare you for the lesson. Today's lesson is about Elastic Beanstalk. Elastic Beanstalk. We have an idea what EC2 is. We have an idea what Lambda is. We like Lambda so much. We've seen when to use Lambda, when to use EC2. But we want to learn about Elastic Beanstalk and when to use it. After this lesson, you may fall in love with Beanstalk, probably more than the other services we've covered. So let's get into it. Now, Elastic Beanstalk is one of AWS's most popular platform as a service that allows developers to deploy their application. And Beanstalk manages and scales the applications and services on behalf of the developer. So the developer focuses on the deployment, writing the code and deployment onto Beanstalk without managing the underlying infrastructure. So let me make this definition easier to follow. Although by the time you finish learning, you understand what that means. So let me make it this way so we can follow it and understand it much better. Now, Elastic Beanstalk is a platform as a service that allows developers to deploy web applications and services without managing the underlying infrastructure. If you compare this to serverless computing, you realize that they have a lot in common. They have a lot in common. With serverless computing, you focus on your code, and AWS abstracts the infrastructure away from you. With Lambda, they don't even tell you what they are doing. They said, we will do it for you. Don't worry about it. With Beanstalk, it is similar. You focus on your code. And with Beanstalk, you can actually run real applications, long-term, long-running applications, not like Lambda for micro services. With Beanstalk, you can really use it for long-running applications. But Beanstalk does your management for you. So management of the underlying infrastructure, that is what Beanstalk does for you. So Beanstalk says that just give us your app. So you finish writing your app, give it to us, and go and sleep. We'll do the rest for you. If you develop an update, bring the updates. We will even roll out the updates for you in a way that there is no downtime. We'll do it for you. How does it really work? Now, Elastic Beanstalk can deploy web applications, APIs, mobile backends, enterprise applications, even microservices and batch processing tasks, even testing and development environments, using popular languages like Python, Java, Node.js, Ruby, .NET, PHP, and Docker. It simplifies infrastructure management by automatically handling, number one, the server setup, load balancing, auto scaling, and application health monitoring. Let me tell you how Elastic Beanstalk works. Let's say you build an application in Python and you want to deploy it. You want other people to use it. Or you build a web application, like you created your own Facebook or your own app. I create apps all the time. I don't know when was the last time you created an app. But you create an app, a web application, and you want to deploy it. You want others to use it. After you are done with the app, Elastic Beanstalk says that zip the app and just upload it to AWS Beanstalk, Elastic Beanstalk. And in AWS, anytime you hear Elastic, they are trying to tell you that this service is scalable. This service has elasticity, or this is a service that has scalability and flexibility. Just like a rubber band, it can scale. So anytime you see any of their services beginning with elastic, it means watch out for scalability. It means there is scalability in this particular service. Now watch this. Once I zip my app and I upload it to this service called Elastic Beanstalk, Elastic Beanstalk will analyze my code, listen to me, and may ask me one or two questions. And so we will see how the configuration really works. But Beanstalk may ask me one or two questions or not. I can use default settings. But watch this. Beanstalk will go to AWS on your behalf. Listen to me. And Beanstalk will check if you need EC2. Then Beanstalk will go and provision EC2 for you. Beanstalk will check if you need S3. Beanstalk will go and provision S3 for you. Beanstalk wants to make sure that when they are managing your application, we don't have traffic issues. And so we need to be able to scale up and scale down. And so Beanstalk will go to AWS auto scaling. Please type auto scaling in the chat for me. And set up an auto scaling service for you. Okay. Beanstalk will set up an auto scaling service for you. You know what auto scaling does? Auto scaling monitors your traffic. And if you need more servers, they said, wait a minute, let's add more servers. They set up more servers. And if you've done cloud for some time, you realize that sometimes when you have more servers involved, you will need a load balancer. So Beanstalk will go to AWS load balancing and set up a load balancer for you. Then Beanstalk will go to CloudWatch and set up CloudWatch to monitor the application. Beanstalk will go to AWS and check all the services you need and set them up for you. Listen to me. At the end of the day, everything you need in the cloud to run this application, Beanstalk will take care of that for you. This is not like how Lambda does it. With Lambda, we don't tell you what we are doing. We only charge you for requests and your compute time. With Beanstalk, after we work for you, listen to me. If you go to your management console and you go to EC2, you are going to see that an EC2 is running. And you go like, who set up this EC2 for me? The answer is Beanstalk. You actually see the EC2 they set up for you. If you go to S3, you are going to see an S3 service running. You go like, I didn't set up this S3. Who set it up? Beanstalk, because you needed it. You go to auto scaling, you see auto scaling running. I didn't set up this auto scaling. It was set up for you. So with Beanstalk, all the AWS services you need will be set up on your behalf. And apart from that, for months and months and months and months, they are going to take care of monitoring the application and managing it. If you need scaling, they are going to scale for you. Even when there are updates and you bring updates, they will roll up the updates or roll out the update on your behalf. It's just like a dev team and a cloud engineer. The dev team may not know about cloud. They only know how to build the application. So the dev team specializes in building the apps. So in the company, the dev team builds the app. Then when they are done, the cloud engineers and the solution architects will come in and will advise the company that for this particular application, we need a load balancer, we need S3 buckets, we need EC2, we may need a number of EC2 instances, we will need auto scaling, we will need so and so. You see, the cloud experts will advise the company because in the company, who studied cloud? The CEO didn't study cloud unless he's at Rita Africa. They don't know about the cloud. Even the developers don't know cloud. So they need cloud engineers to advise the team. Just like in a normal environment, we have a dev team, we have operations team, and we have the DevOps team that live in between the dev and the operations. And they help and advise and they deploy applications. With Beanstalk, Beanstalk says that you don't need a cloud engineer. I am your cloud engineer. You have your dev, just give me your app. I will go to the cloud for you. I'll set up the EC2 we need. I'll set up the load balancing we need. I'll set up the S3 we need. I'll set up everything. So when you go into your management console, you actually see that they have started. Wow, you see that all the services have started running. And the beautiful part of the whole thing is that Beanstalk is free. Listen carefully. Beanstalk itself is free because Beanstalk is just a helper. So you don't pay for Beanstalk, you pay for the services that Beanstalk launched on your behalf. Okay? And Beanstalk will continue to monitor and manage the application for you. Listen to me. There is something to pay for. I didn't say you don't pay anything. What I'm saying is that you don't pay for Beanstalk. So if Beanstalk set up EC2, of course, there is EC2 pricing, right? So you pay for the EC2 that you use. If Beanstalk set up S3, you pay for the S3 that you use. Whatever Beanstalk set up, that is what you pay for. And Beanstalk uses the most cost-effective measures to set up everything your app needs for you to just relax Breathe a sigh of relief and just write your code. No infrastructure management, no server management, nothing. Just write code. Isn't that beautiful? I think Beanstalk is wonderful. I like it so much. I like Beanstalk. It's called Elastic Beanstalk. I don't know about you, but I think this is one of the fantastic AWS services we have. You upload your code, and Elastic Beanstalk handles the rest, deploying it on an EC2 instance, provisioning resources, and setting up the networking and everything. Wow. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. In Ghana, someone will say, Umpewe na pede. I'll not tell you what it means. Someone will say, Onapo. So that is Beanstalk. All right. All right. So what I said means that this is so fantastic. And if you don't want this, what else are you looking for? I mean, this is so cool. Okay, this is so cool. All right. So what we are going to do now is that we want to watch a short clip about Beanstalk. Please listen carefully to everything I have said. Listen to the video from AWS and listen to how they explain this service. After today, you know about Beanstalk. Listen to how it works. So let me play this and then we follow it.
The frustrating job of the accidental sysadmin. As a developer, you just want to build a great website or mobile app, but somehow always end up as a system administrator. You spend a lot of time managing and configuring servers, databases, load balancers, firewalls, and networks instead of coding. Whenever you have to scale your servers to support more users, it becomes a headache because of the extra time you spend re-architecting your infrastructure. Wouldn't it be nice if you could just focus on writing code and building a great product and hand over the provisioning and scaling of the infrastructure and the installation and management of the application stack to someone else? Introducing AWS Elastic Beanstalk. Elastic Beanstalk is an easy-to-use service that deploys, manages, and scales web apps and services for you. Elastic Beanstalk uses managed containers that support environments such as Java, .NET, PHP, Node.js, Python, Ruby, and Docker on familiar servers such as Apache HTTP Server, Apache Tomcat, Nginx, Passenger, and IIS. Elastic Beanstalk leverages familiar AWS services such as Amazon EC2, S3, Simple Notification Service, Elastic Load Balancing, and Auto-Scaling. It's easy to get started on Elastic Beanstalk. You can use the AWS Management Console, the command line interface, or the API. You just choose your platform, like Node.js or Ruby, and Amazon EC2 instance type. Then, you select additional resources to use, such as Amazon Relational Database Service or Amazon Virtual Private Cloud, and then just upload your code. Elastic Beanstalk will handle the rest of the deployment details, such as provisioning, load balancing, auto-scaling, and application health monitoring. Elastic Beanstalk will automatically scale your application up and down based on easily adjustable auto-scaling settings. With Elastic Beanstalk, you also retain full control over all the AWS resources powering your app. You can take over some or all of the resources of your infrastructure anytime, so you're not forced to live with predetermined configurations. Elastic Beanstalk lets you focus on building great web or mobile apps for your users without spending a lot of time managing and configuring infrastructure. You can build things like websites, content management systems, API backends, and even SaaS applications. Elastic Beanstalk can help get you to market faster because it's quick and simple to get started. Elastic Beanstalk automatically load balances and manages scale, helping to make sure your app is always available. You can also tweak any Elastic Beanstalk resource you want when you need to, giving you complete control under the hood. Even better, there's no additional charge for Elastic Beanstalk. You pay only for the AWS resources needed to store and run your applications.
All right, so welcome back from that video. And someone says that I got why it is called Beanstalk. Yes, you're right. You're right. Reference to Jack and the beans and the magic beans. So by this time, I expect you to have an understanding of what this service is. It is a Beanstalk, and it is there to become an assistant to the developer. It goes to AWS and set up all the AWS services you need. It makes use of services like EC2, like S3, SNS, elastic load balancing. You know, this is also a service, elastic load balancing and auto scaling. It makes use of these services to set up what you need to run your applications for you. Not only that, it allows you to launch the application, and it does all the monitoring for you. It gives you application health monitoring for you to monitor the health of your application. If your application is okay or your application has issues, it tells you everything. Apart from that, the beautiful part is this. Watch this. It doesn't restrict you. Listen to this part. As it gives you all the services, infrastructure you need, it also allows you to be able to customize them. So you can go to your Beanstalk and the EC2 is set up for you and say that, no, I don't like this, use this instead. You can actually customize what it gives you. So this is not like Lambda that you have no idea what is going on. With Beanstalk, they actually set up for you and they give you the keys. If you want to change something, go ahead, change something. Whatever you want, you can still do, and just run your app and we deploy for you. We handle everything for you. If you want to make changes, go ahead. You can create branches. You can use load balancing. We actually set up the load balancing for you. You can make changes, branch to different directions, and your app still works. So this is the idea of elastic load balancing. And thinking about it, I think this is a great service, one of the best services, best compute services. And so even though you don't handle the infrastructure, there is still infrastructure, there is still compute. So this is also a compute service, and this works perfectly, works well, allows you to handle your code. Now, this examination requires that we know more than just what is Elastic Beanstalk. And so we are going to learn about the key features of Beanstalk. Let me read this. It says that, in short, Elastic Beanstalk is a powerful platform as a service that simplifies application deployment and management by automating infrastructure tasks, while also giving you flexibility to control and customize the underlying infrastructure or resources. So they set up for you and they still give you the keys. The key features of Beanstalk. Let's look at that. After that, we will take one thing else and then we take a break and we will cover all that the certification requires about this particular service. Now, the key features of Elastic Beanstalk. Number one is simplified deployment. Elastic Beanstalk automates application deployments. And you do a few settings. These settings will tell Beanstalk, more about your app and some things that you like to use. And you can use default settings to make use of predefined configurations. You can also step in and say that for EC2, I want this type of instance because I know you are going to create EC2 for me. So use this type of instance and a number of few things that we need to understand. So you upload your code and AWS handles the provisioning. Here, they also handle the scaling with auto scaling. They handle the monitoring and health management. Number two, platform support. We are talking about the key features of Elastic Beanstalk. Elastic Beanstalk supports popular platforms such as Apache Tomcat, Node.js, Python, PHP, Ruby, Go, and Docker. Scalability automatically scales your application based on demand using auto scaling. So because auto scaling is added, you'll be able to scale automatically. So Beanstalk is saying that, listen, even when there is high traffic, don't worry, we'll take care of it. Because auto scaling is running and auto scaling will monitor and will scale for you automatically. We also have integrated monitoring. Provides built-in monitoring with AWS CloudWatch for performance metrics like CPU utilization and latency. Wow. This tells you that they will set up CloudWatch for you and they will allow you to monitor the progress of your application. As we deploy to the whole world, just sit back and monitor. You will see how much CPU we are using. You will see your latency. Is your application reaching your users with low latency, fast, or whatever is happening, you get to see. So you have a whole CloudWatch monitor for you to monitor everything. We also have managed infrastructure. Elastic Beanstalk manages the EC2 instances, the elastic load balancing, auto scaling, even RDS if configured. So you can also connect it to MySQL using Relational Database Service, RDS, and just have everything set up. I think this is really cool. Then the last feature we'll talk about is customizability. You retain full control of your AWS resources created and customize your settings. So this is why I say that they give you the keys. So they set up for you and they also allow you to make changes whenever you want to. After we return from the break, we'll watch one more video. Then we'll talk about the workflow and a few other things, and we'll end at pricing. And then we'll have a demo Elastic Beanstalk video, just like we did yesterday, to see the Lambda being set up. We will see how Beanstalk is set up and all the settings that you have to do to be able to allow Beanstalk to do the work for you. So let's take a short break. This break should be 10 minutes. When we return, we will watch one video and then we will go through the workflow of Beanstalk. So see you in 10 minutes. All right, everybody, are we back? Can we continue? Are we back? Welcome back from the break. Are we back? All right. So anytime we give you a short break, make sure you stretch. Make sure you get up from your seat and allow proper blood circulation. And then you sit back down for the class. All right. So welcome back, everybody, from the short break. We want to continue with our studies on AWS Elastic Beanstalk. This is a wonderful compute service that allows you to build your app and not worry about the underlying infrastructure because Beanstalk will take care of all the provisioning for you and the managing and the scaling and the monitoring of your app for you. Let's take a look at the Beanstalk workflow and then we'll watch a video about Beanstalk. All right. And so Elastic Beanstalk workflow, number one, what you do is to set up your application. So prepare your application with supported files such as .zip or code bundles of Docker image. So when you get into the technicalities of Beanstalk, after your application is built, you can zip it or they tell you to bundle it and you can bundle it as a zip. It's one way to bundle it, or you can bundle it as a Docker image. So when we get into containerization, we'll talk about Docker images, we'll learn about Docker containers and all that. So you can simply zip it after your application is ready. Number two, you create what we call environment. Please type environment in the chat. If you are still in class, please type environment. Let me see the first person to type environment in the chat. Environment. All right. So when it comes to Beanstalk, we have certain important things we should know. One of the things you should know is what we call environment. So environment in Beanstalk refers to the collection of AWS resources created for running the application. So in Beanstalk, when we use the term environment, we are talking about the collection of AWS resources. We all remember that when it comes to EC2, there is a keyword or terminology we used in EC2. I don't know who remembers the keyword we learned when we were dealing with EC2. We learned about a keyword and we learned about something called instances, right? Wonderful. And when we got to Lambda, I think we learned about a keyword in Lambda. Lambda, we learned about Lambda functions. Do you remember Lambda functions? All right. So in Beanstalk, we are talking about another keyword here, and this keyword is environment. So let's look at what environment means. Let me share my screen again, and we'll talk about environment. Now, environment in the context of Elastic Beanstalk simply refers to the collection of AWS resources that Beanstalk set up for you. What is the understanding we should have about Beanstalk? Listen to this. With Beanstalk, Beanstalk will visit AWS for you and set up the resources for you on your behalf. So the collection of the resources that were set up for you is termed the environment. So the environment refers to the collection of AWS resources for running the application, such as the EC2 they set up on your behalf, the auto-scaling groups, elastic load balancers, security group, CloudWatch, alarms, S3 buckets for logs and for storage. So all that they set up for you, we refer to them as environment. Number three, we have upload and deploy. We are talking about the workflow. All right. So number one, set up your application, bundle your application as a zip. Number two, select an environment. Okay, we'll look at what that means, or create an environment. Then number three, upload and deploy. Upload your application via the Elastic Beanstalk console. You see, once you enter into the management console, you can select Beanstalk as a service. All right. I'm not saying there's a cloud deployment service called Beanstalk as a service. What I'm saying is that you see all the AWS services and you select Elastic Beanstalk. When you select Elastic Beanstalk, what will open is referred to as a Beanstalk console. When you select Lambda, what to open is called the Lambda console. When you select EC2, what to open is called the EC2 console. So in the Elastic Beanstalk console, you can upload your application. Simple. You can also use a command line interface, which we'll be looking at later, or the SDKs. Elastic Beanstalk provisions the infrastructure, deploys the code, and configures the environment. Wow. We'll do a live demo for you to see how this really works. Then number 4, management and scaling. Monitor application health. So this means you are going to be given an interface to monitor your application health through CloudWatch, and metrics using Elastic Beanstalk dashboard. So on the dashboard, you can monitor, modify settings like instance types. You can modify instance types, scaling policies. You can monitor the policies for auto scaling. Then environment variables as needed. So whatever you want to customize, it means you can do that. So this is number 4 in the workflow. And number 5 is applications updates. Deploy new versions by uploading your updated code. Elastic Beanstalk handles rolling updates to avoid downtime. So even when there are updates, Beanstalk allows you to deploy your updates. We'll be talking about the environment that we mentioned, and there are 2 tiers we need to focus on. 2 tiers of the environment we need to focus on. Let's talk about this, and after this, I'll play the video. So Elastic Beanstalk offers 2 types of environment tiers, or 2 versions of the environment. When we say the environment, we've highlighted it. It refers to the collection of resources that AWS will set up. And Beanstalk is telling you that we have 2 types of environment tiers that before you start, you select. We'll look at them. One is called Web Server Environment Tier. This type Web Server Environment Tier. When we go to the demo, you'll see it. Web Server Environment Tier. And this is designed for web applications and APIs. And so this is like a category of the type of environment you want them to set up for you. You know that they will set up the environment for you, but they have given you 2 categories for you to select. And this selection will inform them more about the type of environment you will need. If you choose a web server environment tier, it means you have selected an environment type that is designed for web applications and APIs. And so if you are deploying a web application, you can choose this tier. And this will go ahead and create resources such as EC2 instance, load balancers, auto scaling, and CloudWatch and all that. Let's look at the second one. The second one is called Worker Environment Tier. So please type Worker in the chat for me, Worker. So the first tier is Web Server, and the second one is called Worker. What is the Worker used for? The Worker is an environment tier that is used for background jobs or long-running tasks, such as an SQS queue for processing tasks asynchronously. And so if you know that it is a web application you want to set up, you have to know which environment tier to select. 1 or 2, which one would you select if you are deploying a web application? Which one would you select? So you have to know that. So in the examination, you may be asked a question about the environment tier in Elastic Beanstalk for you to know which environment tier to select if you want to set up or deploy a web application. All right, we are done with that. Before we go to the application versions, all these things are important pieces of information that you need to be able to understand Beanstalk for the examination. Let's watch one video about Beanstalk, and then we'll talk about the application and a few other things. Then we'll end with pricing, and we just call it a day. let me share this video and let's watch it.
Finding the right tools to migrate, build, or modernize your cloud-based web app can be complex. With all the choices available, it can be difficult to know which ones to use. And afterwards, it's up to you to manage multiple services to provision infrastructure, handle deployments, and scale your web app. What if you could instead focus on writing code and building great web apps? Wouldn't it be nice to not have to worry about provisioning services, scaling infrastructure, or updating your platform with the latest patches? AWS Elastic Beanstalk is an easy-to-use service for deploying and scaling web applications and services developed with Java, .NET, Node.js, Python, and many more on familiar servers like Nginx and IIS. Elastic Beanstalk automatically manages the services needed to host and scale your application. Getting started with Elastic Beanstalk is easy. Migrate your application by uploading your source code bundle to Elastic Beanstalk using the Management Console or command line interface. Elastic Beanstalk returns a URL for your new web app and automatically handles the deployment details, such as provisioning, load balancing, auto-scaling, and application health monitoring. You have the option to configure your web app to run on your preferred instance type, or to add resources such as a virtual private cloud or a relational database. Elastic Beanstalk also provides a pathway to modernization. You can re-implement portions of your application as containerized services. Then, by linking to your existing web app, create a distributed application. With Elastic Beanstalk, you can retain control over the AWS resources powering your application, allowing you to manage as much or as little as required. Even better, there's no additional charge for Elastic Beanstalk. You pay only for the AWS resources needed to store and run your applications. With Elastic Beanstalk, you can focus on building API services, web backends, websites, content management systems, and even SaaS applications without spending a lot of time managing and configuring infrastructure. To get started, visit the Elastic Beanstalk console and get your web app running in the cloud in just a few clicks.
All right. So my question to you right now is that have you gotten the clue about what Elastic Beanstalk is? Let me see something in the chat. I want to know if 3 people have gotten Beanstalk. So, number 1, let me see. Christian got it. Norbert got it. Lois got it. Well done, of course. Adejini, Wesley, who else? Hilary, Lorraine. Beautiful, beautiful. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Thank you all. All right. So let's talk about a few other points that we should know about Beanstalk, and then we'll wrap up the class. So I'm going to share my screen again, and we will talk about the application versions. When it comes to Beanstalk, we have some kind of version control in it. We have some kind of version control in it. So, Olubokola, I don't know if you've been joining our classes. Where have you been? Where have you been? Please make sure you follow the lessons. And also, you've been here, very quiet. I hear you. All right. All right, so we have a service called CloudWatch. CloudWatch is just a monitor. All right. It is a different service altogether, which we'll definitely talk about. And it is a management service, allows you to monitor what is happening. If you have managed a website before, you realize that we use a tool like Google Analytics to monitor our website traffic and to know what is going on. And there are a lot of analytics or statistics tools that we use to monitor the performance of our website. Okay, so AWS has CloudWatch that will monitor the activities on all your AWS services, including your billing, including your services. So it is just a monitor that allows you to get information about what is going on AWS. It has very little to do with Beanstalk. Beanstalk is a compute service, and Beanstalk will set up a number of services for you, including CloudWatch, for you to be able to monitor or deploy your application with ease. So we'll get to CloudWatch. Just be patient and you'll get more information about CloudWatch. So as I was saying, I like version controls. I like versioning. And Beanstalk, which is a subject for today's lesson, also allows us to get versions. You know, if you've been working with WordPress previously, WordPress had something we call revision. And this is how it works. So as you keep on updating your website, making changes, anytime you save something, it records the previous state and saves it as a revision for you. Then it will save the current state with the changes you've made. So you keep on making changes. But if something happens in future, you can go back even up to about 30 steps behind. Like you can go back in history. Okay, in Photoshop, we have something like that as well. So you can go back to a previous version. In Beanstalk, we have something like that. Beanstalk stores different versions of your application. You can revert to a previous version if an update causes an issue. So you keep on updating, but what you don't know is that we are not overwriting the current state. We are archiving the current state and storing the new state. So just keep saving changes. And you can go back in history if something happens. So this is very important. It has version control. And once we say version control, it means that there are different versions that are captured for you. And if you need a previous version, you can go back to it. And if you're familiar with WordPress, you see how they do it. It's so nice. So if something went wrong, you actually made a lot of mistakes. You can just go back to a previous version and just restore that version. That's so wonderful. All right, so I'm done with that point. All right. So Beanstalk has the version control feature, okay? And it is referred to as application version in Beanstalk. Now let's talk about environment health monitoring. We understand what environment is, but we are going to learn something new called health monitoring. Please type health monitoring in the chat for me. Health monitoring, health monitoring, health monitoring, health monitoring. Let's keep on learning. Let's keep learning. Let's keep learning. Health monitoring, health monitoring. Thank you very much. Now, Elastic Beanstalk will record the health status of your application. When you see green, it means everything is working fine. Yellow means the application is running, but there are issues. For example, high latency. So you see yellow. If you see red, what does it mean? If you are following the class, when you see red under your health monitor, in your health monitor, what does it mean? What does it mean when you see red? So, all right. So red means application is not running. So this is how you monitor the health of your application. Elastic Beanstalk uses health checks via elastic load balancing to determine application health. So they tell you the health of your application. So just keep this in mind for the examination. Okay, red, gold, green. All right. Then let's talk about customization. Elastic Beanstalk allows customization via configuration files. Number one, you can customize through the AWS Management Console or the Beanstalk console. Just modify settings directly in the console. What do we mean by customization? What do we mean by customization? Who can tell us something about it? So Beanstalk is not like the serverless computing like we learned yesterday. It is platform as a service. It also abstracts the underlying infrastructure. But what this means is that it gives you the ability to customize, changing to your own suitability. I like that, Lois. All right. So on Beanstalk, you can customize. So now we are telling you where you can do your customization. Of course, the console is there. You can see everything. You can switch to EC2 and go and see what is done. You can switch to S3 to go and see what is done, and you can make changes. So they tell you, they allow you to make changes. Where do we do that? One, in the management console, and two, through EB extensions. What does that mean? You can make changes through JSON files. If you've done Python dictionaries, you know what JSON is. And there's another language called YAML. And YAML is a much more cooler language than JSON, which is so popular, and JSON is so cool. YAML is also there. Later on, you will encounter YAML and you realize that, okay, this is cool. And it's much more easy, even though the name sounds new to you. So you can also customize through EB extensions, such as YAML or JSON files, to customize environment settings like EC2 instance types, IAM roles, or CloudWatch alarms. So if you have a JSON file, you see the key value pairs, and what you do is that you can make changes in that document itself. All right, so this point tells you how you can customize. Lastly, before we end the class, we will talk about pricing. Please type pricing in the chat. You can see that AWS is very much interested in pricing. Please type pricing. Let me see who will type pricing. Louisa, number 1. Number 2, Agla Louis. Wildam, of course. Asa, it's been long since I heard Asa. Richard, welcome. Lois, Israel, Valentine, Lucretia, Lobokola. All right, so let's talk about pricing. This is our last point. And the good news is that Elastic Beanstalk is free. Who can type this in the chat for me? Don't forget the itself, okay? Don't forget the itself. Elastic Beanstalk itself is free. Okay, someone says typing is taking time, eh? Okay. Okay. So Beanstalk itself is free. So let's keep that in mind. It's important to know the pricing models. So about EC2, you can't be done with EC2 if you don't know the pricing model. When it comes to Lambda, you have to understand the pricing model. Who remembers how Lambda charges? How are you built on Lambda? Did you take a quiz on Lambda? Oh, you have a difficult quiz coming. You'll be taking a quiz. I don't know if you were told. So you'll take a quiz probably in the morning. I don't know if you were told during the announcement, but you take a quiz about Lambda. All right. So you remember the pricing model of Lambda? Who can tell me how Lambda charges? We learned it yesterday. So with Lambda, you pay per request plus, there are two things. Request plus, number 2, compute time. Excellent. That's it. Yes. Thank you. For Beanstalk, we are telling you that all the amazing things we will do for you free of charge. You don't pay anything. But you have to understand, someone said gigabyte second. Okay, Hillary, thank you. You have to understand that you pay for the environment. These are the resources that were provisioned on your behalf, such as the EC2 instances, S3 storage, and load balancers. Okay, so Beanstalk is free. Beanstalk is your personal cloud engineer or solutions architect in the cloud that you can use. It does everything for you and it's free. You only pay for the resources such as EC2, storage, and load balancers. All right. So I'm going to play a demo. After the demo, we are done. It will take about 10 minutes. So let's pay attention and see how Elastic Beanstalk is being set up. This is the last video we are watching, and after that, we say goodbye. Are you ready? Are you ready for it? Let me know in the chat if you are ready. Let me know if you are ready. All right, Norbert is ready. Asa is ready. So I'm going to share my screen again, and we will watch this. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So let's pay attention to this. This is a demo for you to see how it is. So when you enter into the AWS Management Console, you go to Services. You can go to Compute category and select Elastic Beanstalk. When you click on Elastic Beanstalk, you are brought to this particular page. On this page, you have to start by creating an application. So the application you want to deploy, the settings here says that click here to create an application, and in the process, you upload your code and do other settings. So please pay attention and watch the demo and see all the settings you will go through. Some of them may be, they offer a lot of customization options, all right? So the first part of the video, you are going to be hearing a whole lot of customizations and explanations about them. But if you're actually doing it, it is very simple. So just listen carefully and see all the things available. You don't have to do all of them, but as a student, you need to hear about them. So just pay attention. The second part of the video will be after you've taken care of those details, then everything becomes very simple. So let's be patient, watch, and understand. Thank you.
Hi, friends, and thanks for tuning in. Today we're looking at Elastic Beanstalk, the newer-ish version of this, at least as of the time of this recording. We'll see how easy it is to deploy a web application using the sample app that's available with Elastic Beanstalk. So let's get started. Here on the dashboard, the big orange button says to create an application. So let's try that. But you'll see you actually go to this page to configure an environment, not necessarily the application. If you come over here on the left and come into Applications and create a new application, you'll see that the options are quite a bit different. So let's talk about some concepts first, and then we'll come back. So we have the application, which you usually think of as your code, but in Elastic Beanstalk, this is just a logical collection of stuff that will eventually create a running application. You can kind of think of it as a folder. It's a way to organize things. Inside of the application, you have an environment. So this is going to be your infrastructure, like your EC2 instances, your load balancers, and so on. An environment will run a single application version at a time. And an application can have multiple environments, like one for dev and one for test. We've also got application versions that sit inside of this sort of folder for application. This will be your application code, which is stored in S3. An application can have many application versions, making it easy to do rollback and so on if you need to. And then we've also got saved configurations. This defines how an environment and its resources should behave. You can use this to launch a new environment, and an application can have many saved configurations. So I'll leave that with you just really for a reference slide, but let's go back to the console where we left off. So here I actually am going to create a new application, kind of a folder for what we're doing. And I'll just call it My First App. You can add a description and tags as well, but let's just create this, keep it simple. And then over here on the left, you'll see that we're in this folder or this logical grouping. And then those three things that we talked about. So environment, which I don't have yet. We've got the application versions and the saved configurations. So let's go ahead and create our environment now. For environment tier, we've got two options. If this is going to be a web server environment, like a website or an API or something like that, then you want to go with web server environment. Or a worker environment is more for long-running processes or things that you need to perform on a schedule. We'll go with the web server environment. The application information, this is filled in for me because I started by creating the application, calling it My First App. So we're good there. Moving down to environment name, this will get filled in automatically based on the application name. You could update it if you wanted to, though. For domain, I'm going to just leave that blank for an auto-generated value. We'll skip the description here as well. And then moving down to platform, we're going to go with the managed platform here, meaning Elastic Beanstalk is going to maintain everything for us. Choosing the platform, let's go with Python here. You'll see there's lots of other options as well, though. And then for platform branch and version, we'll just go with the defaults that it gives us. And then we move down to the actual code. If you have some existing code, you can upload it here, grabbing a local file, or you can also upload it to S3 initially, and then just point Elastic Beanstalk to that S3 URL. You can give it a version label, or if there's existing versions that are already uploaded, you can just point it to that. Lucky for us, though, since we don't have either one of those, we can just go with a sample application, and this will just let us see how things work. And in the end, we will have a working application that we can go look at. Moving down to presets, here you can specify a little bit more about the infrastructure that's going to be running this application. The presets, single instance, free tier eligible, that's what we're going to be going with. There's some other options here as well, using spot instances, something for high availability, or a custom configuration. But we're just going to go simple and free, and then say next. This section here for service access has to do with the different IAM roles that will give Elastic Beanstalk the right level of permissions to set up and manage our environment. I do have an existing service role because I've used Elastic Beanstalk before. If you don't have one, though, you can just create a new one, basically go with the defaults here, and then go next. But I will say use my existing one. For key pair, even though Elastic Beanstalk is setting up and managing the environment, it is possible to log into your EC2 instance once it's up and running. If you want to do that, make sure that you choose a key pair here. I'm going to skip that, though. We'll just go with the defaults, and then we'll say next. Some additional settings here where you want this to live, your virtual private cloud or VPC. I just have one, which is my default VPC. That's probably true for you as well. So just select that. We can then choose the subnets where we want the instances to run. I'll just go with two of the different subnets here, US West 2C and 2A. If you plan on running a database, you can configure the subnets for that as well. I'm not going to deal with the database here in this demo, and in fact, I've got it disabled here. If you wanted to enable the database, though, you would just toggle that over and choose your subnets above. Lots of other settings here around the database. We're just going to skip through those. We'll skip the tags and say next. So you can have a lot of control here, or you can just keep it simple and go with a lot of the defaults. Some additional information about how your EC2 instances are configured. This is your storage, so the root volume, the hard drive basically, but you can choose SSD or magnetic. We'll go with the defaults again. CloudWatch monitoring, we'll go with defaults. Defaults. Security groups. I have some that I've created for other demos. I'm going to go with the default on this one, which you should have as well. That will let us actually get to our website in the end. Capacity, here are things around your auto-scaling group, which Elastic Beanstalk will set up and manage for you. So we'll go with the defaults on this. Scrolling down, next. For health monitoring, we're just going to go with the basic system here. Scrolling down, manage platform updates. I will deactivate this since we're just doing a simple demo here, but you can have Elastic Beanstalk manage your updates on a weekly basis or something like that. Email notifications, if you wanted to sign up to be notified of important events, we'll skip that as well. Defaults all the way down. And then next. Then to the review screen, all of the different things that we've set up here. And then finally, we can say submit. So Elastic Beanstalk is launching our environment. This will take a few minutes. You get sort of play-by-play action down here of what's going on under events. If we refresh this, we'll see what's happening here. So starting to create the environment, using an S3 storage bucket for environment data, creating a security group, and so on. So I'll just let that run for a few minutes, pause the video, and I'll be back when we have something to look at. And success. Excellent. If we scroll down to events, you'll see successfully launched environment. Perfect. And if we come over here to the domain, let's click on that. Congratulations. Here's our first Python application built using Elastic Beanstalk. So this is just the sample application. This is not our actual code, but it was super easy to get this going. All of the infrastructure and everything underneath the application was stood up and is being managed for us. So pretty easy. Back to Elastic Beanstalk. Here on the left, we can take a look at what exactly is in here. So coming into configuration, here are all of the things that are happening behind the scenes, all of the infrastructure, updates, monitoring, logging, and so on. Also, if we open up a new tab, we can go into EC2, and we can actually see the instance there that Elastic Beanstalk created for us. So I've got one running instance for my first app. We could log into this if we selected a key pair earlier. We should also have an auto-scaling group. So scrolling down here, auto-scaling group, and you'll see the EB there in the name for Elastic Beanstalk. So that was also created for us. Back to Elastic Beanstalk, we have additional things like monitoring. Here we're monitoring for things like CPU utilization, network in, network out, the health of the environment, and so on. And you can change the time range up here. Since I just started mine, these are all going to be the same, but you can change your range, time zone, and so on. If you click on health over here on the left, you get additional information about what's going on with the environment, all from right here in Elastic Beanstalk. Now, if you were following along, let me show you how to delete the application. Elastic Beanstalk itself is free, but the underlying infrastructure is not. So let's make sure we go decommission that. Come up to your applications. Select My First App. And then for actions, say Delete Application. This will also terminate the environment, which is exactly what we want. So we just need to enter the name of the application. I'll copy paste that and delete. This will take a little while to run, but you'll get notified up here when it's done. The infrastructure, meaning your EC2 instance, your auto-scaling group, and all of that should be blown away as well, and then you should be good to go. So that's it. That's how to deploy a web application using Elastic Beanstalk. If you found this helpful, hit that like button for me, and also consider subscribing for more content like this.
Wow, this video is wonderful, and it shows you everything you have to do to be able to use Beanstalk, all the settings. And Beanstalk wants you to create an application. And so the application is like the container or the folder that handles your environment, your versions, your configurations, and everything. And then your code as well. Then they let you upload your code. And then everything is set up. You check the settings. Once you are okay, I like the parts where after you set up, you can log on and go to EC2 and you go to, so when you are set up, you can see that it is running. So if you uploaded your code, you see your application here. So in this example, we use a sample demo code. That is why we are seeing this. But if you uploaded your real code, you will see your real application. After this, you can go to EC2 and you just discover, wow, EC2 is running. Who created it is Beanstalk. Beanstalk created this EC2. Then you go to S3, you go to all the services, and you can see that it did all of that for you. This is really nice. And this video, you should watch it till you understand it. It has a lot of details. So thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure. We've made another progress tonight, another step forward in our training. On and on we go, and we are getting there. So let's keep learning. Let's keep learning. This video will be published early tomorrow. Go through it, and the previous lesson on AWS Lambda, make sure you watch the video again because you are going to have another tricky quiz. So watch the video and be prepared and make sure you pass. This Beanstalk, make sure you pass, make sure you understand it. Watch the video again and get ready. As always, it's been a pleasure being with you. This is where we draw the curtain. Thank you so much.